Hello, my name's Arthur, and I am 1 year post-op top surgery. It has flown by, and I have, forgotten that I ever was pre-op. It just feels so natural and correct. And I think one of the really big things has been that you don't realize how hard it is to be a man with breasts until you are a man without breasts. And then it's like, whoa, life is on easy mode now. I had various sort of friends and relatives that when I was approaching top surgery, they asked me, in, I think a kind and inquisitive way, why can't you learn to accept yourself as a man with breasts? We support you as a man, but can't you just learn to love your body? Why is surgery necessary? And at the time I told them things like, okay, I want to be able to go around shirtless, I want to be able to go to the beach, I really don't like taping my chest, which is how I used to bind before top surgery. And, they got it, they were all cool and supportive. But whoa, now that I'm through it all, it's even crazier than I had thought. I love being post-op, I love having a flat chest even more than I ever could have imagined. And what I went through before, having to wake up every day and think to yourself, okay, how can I hide my breasts? They make me uncomfortable. Having to tape my chest, the blisters that I would get from that, having to think about that when it came to intimacy, when it came time to partners, that I didn't like them seeing that part of my body, not feeling comfortable being at the beach, having to think about, again, not being able to be shirtless in my own home and feel comfortable with that, and just having a body that didn't really feel right, and a chest that didn't really feel right. It's just so hard. It was so hard, and I managed it. I had, all the routines in place. I had everything as good as it could possibly be to be a person that is pre-op. I did it all, and I was managing, but, it's just the biggest, weight off your chest. It's now that I've been living it for a year as someone with a flat chest, I don't know, I couldn't go back. I mean, thankfully I don't have to. But I guess just as a little, in the start of the video, I just want to say, if you are pre-op right now, what you are going through is hard, it is impressive. The fact you are managing this, no one knows what it's like, A cis person can say that they think they could be a man with breasts, they don't know what it's like. It is really hard, and it is one of the harder things you're gonna have to do, and then it might feel like your time is forever away. I remember it did for me. My top surgery date kept on getting canceled and pushed, and it felt so distressing and so stressful, and I just was like, is it ever gonna happen? When I was driving into the hospital the day of my surgery, I was just convinced I was gonna get a call or that I was gonna test positive with COVID, and it wasn't gonna happen. Your time will come, and you will realize that the strength you've built up, wow, now you can use it for other things in your life, And now that I don't have to think about my chest and don't have to think about that dysphoria and that's all gone, that part of my brain is freed up to do all sorts of other things. It's amazing. You are a very strong person, and this is a really hard thing, and the strength that you've built up going through this, you'll be able to apply to all other aspects of your life once you're through this. So I just want to say that I remember what it was like. It's really hard, and I know that watching this kind of video can be I don't know, sometimes make people feel jealous or make you feel pessimistic, it won't happen. It will happen for you. You will be here, and it will be more amazing than you can possibly imagine. So, that's that. So, 1 year post-op, a year ago, I had peri-areolar top surgery. So there are a few common types of top surgery. The most common is double incision top surgery, where they remove the skin under your chest, they cut off the nipples and they sort of re-sew it, right? Because many people have larger breasts, and so that makes it so that in order to get your chest to be flat, you actually have to take off some skin. I had a form of top surgery, peri top surgery, where they don't really take off any skin because my chest was very small pre-op. The size of chest that I had pre-op, small, I would say I think I was a B cup or an A cup when I was wearing bras forever and ever ago, and you can see this photo here. I was about as large as it's possible to be, so to my understanding. There are other forms of top surgery that are different than double incision, like lollipop, where they cut scars down. Basically, one of my sides is a lollipop. Keyhole, which is if you're even smaller than me, where they just cut the underside of the nipple. Mine, the nipple is all around. So there are all these different scarring types, and you can pursue and talk about those with your doctor when it's time. So I had a few questions from my video that I filmed a year ago that I wanted to get around to answering, so a little bit of a Q&A part. So one person asked, what was the consultation like? So in the consultation, you book it. In my case, it was many months. It took many months for it to happen. You roll up, you take off your shirt. He just basically looked at me. He might have very professionally touched my chest a little, but I think he mostly just looked at me and sort of instantaneously said, okay, one side is the ideal candidate for peri-areolar top surgery, and the other side is unideal. In situations like yours, you can either do peri where you do a modification on the side that's unideal, or you can do double incision. And then he basically explained that he would recommend double incision if I didn't care about scars, but if I did care about scars, he would recommend Peri. I, at the time, didn't think I really cared about scars, but really cared about sensation. So because periareolar does not cut the nipple stalk, you have the possibility to preserve sensation, whereas that doesn't really happen in double incision because you have fully taken the nipple off. And so that was the reason I leaned towards Peri. As it turns out, I love not having scars, but I didn't know that at the time. And so someone else asked about what the insurance coverage process was like. So I did have my top surgery covered by insurance. I'm a graduate student, and graduate students actually get paid and get health insurance to teach, essentially. And we don't get paid a ton, but we do get excellent health insurance. So my health insurance is just so fantastic. And I know because I had worked with my parents' health insurance before I was a grad student, and that was much, much, much worse. I ended up paying, I want to say like $100, maybe $200 with consultation for top surgery. So, fantastic. And there were lots of other little things like Ubers to and from the place and, supplies related to top surgery and the prescription meds. And so maybe if you were to add up everything all together, top surgery would have cost me like $400 maybe, but like so cheap for the price of what this is. I don't have dental insurance, and I had a cavity recently, and that was like 2 top surgeries of cost for like a tooth. This was great for what it got me. Very content with the price. I did have to get prior authorization in order to have coverage, and so from my insurance they required that I have a letter from a therapist diagnosing me with gender dysphoria, and I think walking through the steps, like some set of steps in the W-PATH guidelines, maybe, I'm not sure. I had been with my therapist for like a year and a half, and she, I think, had been lightly, I don't want to say encouraging me to get top surgery, but we had been talking about my fears and my neuroses around the idea of surgery for a while, so she was really ready to write me that letter. I recall the steps of what happened is that I booked my consult. I told my therapist that I was going to be going about this, so she was ready to write the letter for me, and maybe even had it written at that point. Booked my consult, had the consult, and then the surgeon's office put together something to submit to my insurance to try to get the prior authorization, or to get the prior authorization. And so that's the point at which I think my therapist's letter came into play. So it was all pretty smooth, and I didn't have to do a lot of legwork on that, because the surgeon's office wanted to get it covered, so they did a lot of legwork there. Okay, the last question was, do I feel comfortable walking around shirtless? Absolutely. So, just so unquestionably, when I got top surgery, I had really hoped that I would have a bit of a shirtless summer. Got pushed, and I had surgery at the end of July. I was like, okay, Peri takes some time to set in, because you didn't remove any skin, right? So if you think about someone who has lost a lot of weight and they have a little bit of loose skin, that's sort of what the chest area can look like when you've had Peri. So I lived with 7 other grad students, and we ended up deciding to take a trip at the end of August to a cabin. And I was like, I wonder how I'm gonna feel about being shirtless, because maybe I'll have some loose skin. These people have known me before I had top surgery. You wanna look good. You wanna feel comfortable. These were close friends, so I was like, okay, it's gonna be fine. And it just looked so great immediately. It felt so natural immediately, and I just was like, oh, of course I'm gonna be shirtless. There's no thought in my mind at all. And so I'm shirtless all the time now. I think before top surgery, when I'd see guys on dating apps that would have shirtless profiles, I would be like, oh, automatic red flag. And now I am, another shirtless torso on Grindr, and I love being at the club and being shirtless, and I love being at the beach and being shirtless, and I love walking around my house and being shirtless, I love running shirtless, I do everything shirtless, it's great. I feel really comfortable. Okay. Anyways, I know what you guys are looking for, and I know what many of you have probably skipped to this point to see, because you don't want to hear my random musings and my little pep talk. It's understandable. You want to see the product. Okay, so I have been super happy with how my chest has been healing up. So, this is my chest. I guess I'll be shirtless the rest of this video, maybe we'll see. Okay, so I mentioned that on one side this was the unideal side. I had a modified form of Peri, and that's like lollipop. So, I don't know, let's see if I can see this. Do you see this little scar here? I mean, kind of. It's pretty faint. So I have this little scar coming out of here. I have not been doing a lot of scar care. So the reason I haven't been doing a lot of scar care is I had this weird, I don't even know what I call it, a complication, but I was getting little, and still kind of do get little, acne kind of things around the scars, and when I was looking this up, people said that it's not good to do scar care and soften the tissue if you're having that little bit of like your skin, like some people were saying that it's like spinning the stitches, so there's like internal stitches, and that maybe your body's just rejecting them, and it's not a big deal like when it happens, but anyway, so I stopped doing scar care, but this scar is super faint. People do not notice it at all, which I just know now because like people don't notice it, and I think this also means that if I had double incision, which was an option for me, I think I would have scarred pretty well. I think I probably just scar well. So yeah, around my nipple here, it's like very, very hard to make out. I'm gonna try to get even closer with the camera, but this is a little bit of a balancing act. Okay. Yeah, no, that's not. Anyways, this is as close to It's such a weird angle. Anyways, I have like, they cut like around the nipple there. That's how they took out the tissue, is just around here. So I have this little very faint scar, but you're probably struggling to see it, and that's because it's very hard to see. And so you can trust that if I'm having a hard time showing it to you on camera, it doesn't really ever come up in my life, that scar. Aside from, again, I don't know what the deal is with these, like, is it ingrown hairs? I asked my surgeon, I sent them pictures of the little parts where, like, a little bit of healing, whatever, but he said it's not a big deal, so I'm just gonna trust him that it's not a big deal. Yeah, so yeah, I have this scar, so cosmetically, extremely, extremely content. I don't think I have really any loose skin. I do have, like, I don't know if you can see this here, like, there's, like, this kind of slightly indentation. It's like a little lump. I don't know what the deal is. I don't really care. I'm content with my chest. I think it's very cool that I have like a little bit of, like, I don't know, pecs. Like, let's see if I flex. I don't know. Anyways, that's fun. It obviously, I guess it should have occurred to me that was possible, but it didn't really. And now it's like I actually, my chest measurement all around is 2 inches larger than before. No, maybe more. I'm 36 inches around, and I was like a 32, 34, something like that. So several inches larger than when I had breasts. Like, I have like that much like back and pec tissue now. So that's really fun. Very different than having breast tissue, having pecs. Okay, so other things. So I mentioned that the reason that I chose Peri over double incision wasn't about aesthetics. I was okay with the idea of scars. It was about sensation. Well, how is my sensation doing? So that's pretty hit or miss, and this is something that I know I was often anxiously watching these updates for people who had gotten top surgery to know, like, did they get the sensation back? So the answer is, on this side, I can feel everything. It doesn't feel as it felt before. It still feels a little weird and a little numb. And it's just not, it just doesn't bother me that much that it does. It's a little hard to describe. It feels, yeah, like numb in the sense of like, let's say you crossed your leg a little and cut off blood flow for a bit, and then you got up and then you kind of like touched it, like a little numb. It's not, like, I can definitely feel it. I can definitely tell where on my chest I am. And it feels pretty normal, but different, and a little numb. And it just isn't that big of a deal to me. I can feel everything. It's just like a little numb, and the numbness kind of probably is like the space of my hand, maybe-ish, something like that. Yeah, so it's weird because this is the side that, you know, has the scar, so there was more tissue to begin with. It was the unideal side, but the sensation is better. I don't know what the deal is with that, no clue. This side, I did get sensation back. In particular, the thing I was concerned with was sort of erotic nipple sensation, just like a little TMI to talk about, but it was important to me. It was something I thought about a lot, and it was something I see people talk about a lot. I think it came back about 75%. Like, it's definitely there. Like, it definitely feels like pretty similar to how it did before. It, like, again, there's still a little bit of, like, I don't describe this, like, if I touch around here, it's just like the nerves haven't totally remapped. Like, if I touch here, I kind of feel it in my nipple a little. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel it in my nipple. I can't explain the science of that. So it just feels a little different, and the nipple feels like 75% what it did before. And the thing is at this point, I can't complain. Like, when I hook up with people, they will literally say, like, wow, like, you have such sensitive nipples. And I do, by male standards, have sensitive nipples. I don't, by my own standards, based on where I was a year ago, but, like, whatever, you know, like, at some point I'm like, I can't complain, you know, like, yes, I had something that was even more before, but now I'm doing, I don't know, better than the average guy, right? Like, you win some, you lose some. I have a male chest, and I have a pretty sensitive one at that. I think that's fantastic. I think I have, you know, one of the better male chests out there then, you know? Yeah, and so it took me like 6 months until any of the sensation was coming back on this side, in my nipple. And I noticed what it did, right? Like, it started creeping up, and then I was like, whoa, it's coming back. And it continues to improve, so I could fully believe this side will reach, like, 100%, and I could believe, I don't feel anything right now. My surgeon said it takes, like, up to 2 years, so maybe this side will get somewhere, but I could believe this side will get even better. Yeah, and so I did spend, like, months and months having this chest that I thought was very aesthetic, and not really having sensation like I used to. And I went to top surgery really hoping I would have sensation. So what did I feel during those 6 months? I didn't really think about it. I didn't really care. I didn't really care. And when I got the sensation back, I was like, amazing! But I wasn't like, thank God. I was just like, that's great. It's like, okay, before top surgery, let's say I was like, you know, here. And then you get top surgery and you're like here, you know? And then sensation moves you up a little, right? Like, it's like I'm in the same level. I just, like, went from here to here. Like, I have this amazing nail chest, and now it's also toyed out with a little bit of features, too. I can feel some stuff. And so it's, like, it's just not even close. Like, the biggest leap, unquestionably, was going from having a female chest to a male chest. Like, that's what the leap was. The sensation is great, but, like, it's great because I have a male chest. You know, it's just not even close. And I don't think I could have guessed that beforehand. Like, I definitely thought it was going to be a bigger deal than it was. But the reality of it is, like, I wasn't really, I don't know, I didn't feel comfortable with my chest, so I wasn't really engaging with it that much. And, like, I think it's, like, the idea of losing something feels very uncomfortable. Like, losing sensation, oh my god. It feels scary. And then it just wasn't really that scary in reality. Because you're overwhelmed by the feeling of, like, whoa, I feel so happy and content that you don't feel like you lost anything. Like, I didn't lose anything. Something changed and it's different, but, like, it just wasn't as scary as I was making it out to be. I felt totally okay with it. If my sensation stays like this, I'll be incredibly happy. If it had never come back, I would be incredibly happy. If it comes back more, that's great too. It just wasn't as big of a deal as I would have thought. So I think this is also, I'm sure I have some people that are watching this that are going to get double incision and probably will lose erotic nipple sensation, and might be concerned about that. Again, I see that discussion happening all the time on different sort of FTM forums and that sort of thing. And totally each person, I think, has their own relationship to their body and to grieving and to change, but I just, at least for me, I know that if I had double incision, I would have been really freaked out about losing it, and it just wouldn't have mattered in the end. Because I know I was latching on when I was going into Peri, I was latching on to that, like, oh, I hope I'll get it back, into that hope. If I'd had to give up that hope, it would have been really scary to me. The outcome, it just would have been the same. It would have been either incision type, you would have gotten a male chest, and that would have just been great. And so, yes, there's a reality. I know that also some people watching this are probably deciding between Peri and double incision. And that was the situation I was in, right? Like, I did have a choice. I knew that the cons of choosing Peri, some people end up with sort of with a looser chest, where you have some extra skin. And I had decided that was an okay risk for me. I didn't end up with extra skin, so I can't, like, really tell you what it is like to be someone who has Peri and who has extra skin. Advice I can give is that you should ask your surgeon for pictures that they've, you know, of people before and after they've had the incision types you're considering. Often on surgeons' websites you can see examples of that, and I think that's very useful for if you're thinking about, in particular, like, if you're a borderline case. My surgeon had pictures of people that had chests that looked like mine, and the outcomes looked good. And so I felt comfortable choosing him and going with Peri because I thought there was good odds that I wasn't going to end up with loose skin. And I didn't. You know, I could have, but I didn't. I don't talk about who my surgeon is just because I do try to keep, like, some privacy. That's that. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be a data point to you being like, yes, that surgeon is, like, perfect. But you can Google surgeons in your area, surgeons you're considering, and see example pictures. And I also think, so there's this website called Transbucket that I also looked at, where people can post surgery pictures for surgeons, and it's sort of access. You can access it with a login and password, so it's a little more protected, but anyone can get access to it. And it had been taken down for a bit because of anti-trans attackers, which is sad, but I think it is back up, so I think that's also a good place to look at if you're looking for photos. You can look at TransBucket on Facebook, on Reddit, search your surgeon's name, and then also just Google your surgeon. So I would recommend doing that if you're borderline, to try to get a sense of the decision you're making. And the other thing I can say, and I do feel sort of weird talking about this because I know it isn't an option for all people, but I do really like not having scars. I think it's just like the cherry on top. It isn't a huge deal, but I do really like it. And if you have the choice, you know, it's a pro. I think that, and I think it's, again, mostly a matter of patience. So I have friends who are post-op, like, recently, and they have visible scars. I have friends who are post-op, like, 5 years, and they don't have visible scars anymore. So eventually, many people with good scar care and with time will end up without visible scars, whether you choose double incision or whether you choose peri. It was sure fun to be able to jump right into, like, not having visible scars. So very shortly after I got top surgery, like maybe 2 months after I got top surgery, my boyfriend and I went on a trip with another gay couple, and one of them I was meeting, I think, for the first time, and we were staying in one tiny little Airbnb, and I sleep in boxers, and so he saw me, like, walking around shirtless all the time, and then we were going to the clubs, and as said, I was one of those sort of shirtless guys at the club, and wearing mesh tops, and so he was seeing a lot of my chest, and a lot of me, and then at the very end of that, like, long weekend, I mentioned, I was like, oh, blah, 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 and then something about transition or transness, and he was just like, oh, I had no idea that you were trans. And that was really cool to me, because I was, like, basically naked around him, just in underwear, and he didn't know, he didn't realize, and it was, like, nice, because I was able to tell him once we'd spent many hours getting to know each other at that point, like, 3 days of, like, non-stop contact, and I felt, like, close to him. And then I was like, now I feel ready to tell you that I'm trans, and we can talk about all the fun, weird stories I have about the fact I'm trans. And I was ready then, right? Like, so it was nice to have the option to tell, and I didn't feel like I had to tell, or like anything about my body gave me away immediately, and that was really cool. And like, I don't know, similarly, like I had a time where I was hooking up with someone who obviously knew I was trans, but then afterwards, I think I was showing him old photos or something like this, and he was like, whoa, like, I didn't realize you went through a female puberty. Like, he just thought that I had transitioned before, and that's why my chest was the way it was. And I found that very flattering, because I'm, like, well beyond that sort of phase of life where you want to be like, oh, like, you look like a cis man. I mean, cool, obviously I want to look like, you know, the prototypical male, but I found it much more flattering to be compared to a trans guy who'd been given access to, you know, hormones and treatments and, you know, pre-puberty. I was like, yeah, like, I love that counterfactual world in which I was in fact a child transitioner. I mean, I wasn't, but, like, cool that I can, like, be seen as trans and also someone that, like, has an extremely male body that visibly doesn't look like it ever went through a female puberty. I mean, that's, like, sick. Like, I really went through a female puberty and I don't look it anymore. Like, that's super cool. Yeah, and so, like, leading up to top surgery, I had been working a lot on self-acceptance. And it was this weird thing where I was like, I love the fact I'm trans, but I feel so uncomfortable telling people. I feel uncomfortable with them knowing. I feel awkward around disclosure. I don't feel confident in my transness, even if I, like, love it. And I was working a lot on that confidence and a lot on that self-acceptance. And that work was super important. And then just top surgery just blasted through it, right? Like, all of those months of therapy, and then one top surgery, and I was like, done. You know, like, I go under the knife one day, and it was like, whoa. I mean, not literally, but, like, all that work I had done building up to top surgery, and all that sort of reflection and talk with my therapist, and all of a sudden it was all so much easier to take advantage of it when I'd been through surgery. Like, with a body that I love, with a body that I'm confident in, it's easier to be confident about being trans. Like, I just don't worry. I had a whole separate video about this, but I don't really worry about rejection due to my transness anymore. I think my body is perfect, so, like, your loss, you know? Like, I love my body. It's great. And I think that it was a lot scarier to face rejection and scarier to tell people I was trans when I didn't feel so comfortable in my body, because, like, that was vulnerable. Like, I was vulnerable. My chest was something that I personally had hard feelings about. So if you told me you also thought it was weird or whatever, like, I didn't like that. That hurt a lot more. And it's a lot harder to hurt me now because I, like, love me. And it feels like I've unlocked some sort of next level I didn't even know it could possibly exist plane of, like, body love and self-love. Like, I think I love my body more than the average person, like, well more than the average person does. You know? And people talk about how, like, trans people and self-love and trans people and getting through dysphoria and getting through discomfort and born in the wrong body and all that. And it's always with this feeling of, like, okay, like, maybe we can catch up to cis people, you know? Like, maybe eventually you can just be, like, a cis man. And I think I am happier with my body than a cis man. I mean, maybe you'll be like me, maybe you won't. But I think the experience of having been a man with breasts and then being a man with a fat, flat chest, it's like, you don't take anything for granted, you know? And it's a year later and I still feel this way. I feel very natural and comfortable, and I forget that I ever didn't have top surgery, but I don't forget the appreciation I feel for my chest and the love I feel for my chest. When I look at myself and my body in the mirror, I just think, like, thank God, this is so amazing and I feel so lucky. And it feels so natural, but that's all part of the package, right? Like, I feel naturally like me and authentically like me and comfortable and good, and I love taking photos of myself, and I love dancing, and I love being naked, and I love everything. It's great. And I just don't have a lot of bad self-talk or bad thoughts about my body. It's just good. And it's also so funny. It's like, I was showing my boyfriend an old photo of me because I was just going through old photos, and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that I, like, used to look like this. And he was just like, wow, it looks, like, really weird and bizarre and wrong. And it's funny because he knew me and he loved me during that time and was always really cool with the fact that I was pre-op. But, like, when you get used to me post-op, it's like... And I think that's the thing. It's also very clear to me that, like, guys... And this is how I felt about myself, too, but, like, guys before, when I was pre-op, would just kind of, like, ignore my chest. So I had an ex where he hadn't seen me without my tape, and he was trying to give me a little pep talk about how he wouldn't judge and he wouldn't care. And he was like, I have a birthmark on my butt, and it's a little unsightly, it's not my favorite thing, but whatever, it's just there. And that really spoke to me at the time, because I did not like my chest, I found it unsightly, and he wasn't attracted to it either, right? Like, he's gay. But he was like, okay, like, we don't need to focus on it. Like, you can have parts of your body that aren't your favorite part, and it can just be there. And I thought that was really beautiful and very kind of him. But man, it's so fun to have a part, like, to not just have, like, a part of your body you're ignoring and you're trying to hide. And now people are, like, actively attracted to my chest. It's not just, like, something don't touch, don't look at it, ignore, and try to focus on everything else. It is, like, a part of me. It's not something to be hidden. And that's really very, very freeing and really, really wonderful. And again, it's how I feel personally, but it's also how I interact with the world. It all kind of comes together. So yeah, that's that. 1 year post-op. I don't really think there's going to be many changes, and honestly, I think my scars are pretty unremarkable as they are, so I'm not sure that you're going to get another video explicitly about my top surgery results, because, like, what is there to show? I might talk about in a future video that I really feel like top surgery also kind of fixed my bottom dysphoria, so that's interesting. But this is that, you know? Maybe I'll film another video shirtless just for the novelty of it. And also, you know, I have, where did it go? I have, one chest hair here, right there, and then, like, one chest hair at my shoulder, so maybe at some point you'll see some sort of chest hair progress video. But in the meantime, I think, you know, this is it. This is my chest. Pretty great. And, you know, again, I remembered to film this video because I was like, I still get comments on my old videos, and I think, like, Google Photos also, like, popped up this, like, oh, remember 1 year ago? And I was like, oh my God, 1 year ago. But, like, really, you just settle into it, and you just, like, are living, and you're just like, oh, wow, great, I have an amazing body, amazing. And so that's what that, and you'll get there if you're waiting on top surgery. You will be here, and it will be great, and it will be worth the wait. Okay, thanks for watching.